poor single dad rescued a billionaire dying on the flight, then left without a word. 30,000 feet above ground, chaos exploded in first class. A woman in a designer suit collapsed, her lips turning blue, chest heaving for air that wouldn't come. Flight attendants stood frozen. Passengers fumbled for phones to record the moment instead of helping. Then a pair of rough, weathered hands pushed through the panicked crowd, hands that belonged to a man in a faded hoodie from the cheapest seat in the back, a man clutching his young son's hand. He didn't introduce himself. He didn't wait for permission. He just moved. Within 3 minutes, those calloused hands pulled Charlotte Brennan, Billionaire CEO, back from death's edge. The cabin erupted in applause. Security rushed forward to get his information, to thank him, to reward him. But when they turned around, he was gone, vanished into the terminal like he'd never existed. Chicago to London. The red-eye cuts through the darkness at 35,000 feet. Cabin lights dimmed, most passengers already asleep. Raymond Foster had been awake for 32 hours when he boarded Flight 743. His shoes, held together with duct tape on the inside where nobody could see, squeaked slightly against the airport floor. The discount ticket, crumpled in his pocket, had taken 3 months of saving, cutting every corner, skipping meals he told himself he wasn't hungry for anyway. His 6-year-old son clutched a worn backpack containing everything precious to him: a toy car missing 2 wheels, a photo of a mother he barely remembered, and a half-eaten granola bar Raymond had saved from his warehouse shift. The night janitor job ended at 6 in the morning. The warehouse loading shift started at 7. Between them, Raymond had exactly 47 minutes to shower in the gym locker room, change clothes in his car, and drink gas station coffee that tasted like regret. Weekends, he did handyman work, fixing toilets and painting fences for people who lived in houses he could never afford. 3 jobs, barely enough, never enough. His nursing degree hung in a closet somewhere, buried under 7 years of survival, collecting dust alongside dreams he'd stopped having. Kevin looked up at him as they shuffled down the aisle toward row 8A. "Dad, will Grandma be okay?" The question gutted him like it had every time Kevin asked in the past 6 hours since the call came. Raymond's mother, the woman who'd raised him alone after his father left, who'd worked doubles at the diner to put him through nursing school, was dying. Stage 4 cancer. Maybe days left, maybe hours. The hospital had called that morning, voice gentle with practiced sympathy. "You should come now if you want to say goodbye." Raymond squeezed Kevin's hand, the lie bitter on his tongue. "She will, buddy. She's tough." He wasn't tough. He was held together with the same duct tape as his shoes, one more shock away from falling completely apart. They reached row 8A. Raymond lifted Kevin into the window seat, took the aisle himself. Through the gap in the curtain, he could see first class up front, leather seats, champagne in real glasses, a woman in an expensive suit typing on a laptop that probably cost more than Raymond made in 6 months. Different world, different universe. He looked away, focused on buckling Kevin's seatbelt, the one thing he could control. The wedding ring hung on a chain around his neck, hidden under his shirt, pressed against his chest like a second heartbeat. 7 years since Jennifer died. 7 years since he'd held her hand while she bled out, bringing Kevin into the world. 7 years of being both parents, being not quite enough as either. The eviction notice waited at home, tucked under the apartment door where Kevin wouldn't see it. 3 months behind on rent, final notice, 5 days to vacate. The cabin lights dimmed further. The overhead speaker crackled. The captain's voice came through, measured but tight. "This is your captain. We have a medical situation in first class. If there is a doctor, nurse, or anyone with emergency medical training on board, please identify yourself to the crew immediately." A flight attendant moved quickly past row 8A, scanning business class first, eyes searching for someone who looked the part. A woman in first class glanced back towards economy, then turned away, unimpressed. Raymond's eyes opened. Something in him, buried under 7 years of duct tape and double shifts, recognized the tone in that voice. He looked down at Kevin, asleep against his shoulder. Then he unbuckled his seatbelt.
Up in first class, Charlotte Brennan barely noticed takeoff. She was reviewing acquisition documents, 3 companies she was considering purchasing, numbers that would mean jobs created or lost depending on her signature. Her assistant had protested when she had insisted on flying commercial instead of taking the company jet. "It's a red-eye, Marcus. I'll survive." She always survived, built an empire from nothing, became the woman everyone underestimated until it was too late. 42 years old, worth $3 billion, and she couldn't remember the last time she'd had a conversation that wasn't about business. 30 minutes into the flight, Charlotte reached for her water glass and felt her throat tighten. Strange. She'd had lunch before boarding. Shrimp, maybe. She swallowed. The tightness increased. Her lips started to tingle. Her chest constricted like someone had wrapped steel bands around her ribs and started twisting. She tried to breathe. Couldn't. Her vision blurred at the edges, gray creeping in. The laptop slid from her lap. Anaphylactic shock. Some distant part of her brain recognized it. She was dying. At 42, surrounded by strangers at 35,000 feet, she was dying. The cabin erupted in chaos. Flight attendants rushed over, faces pale. A man pulled out his phone and started filming. Charlotte's lips were turning blue. She slumped sideways, vision tunneling. Then hands touched her face. Gentle hands, rough hands. Someone tilted her head back, fingers checking her pulse with practiced precision. A voice quiet and steady. "Ma'am, I'm a nurse. Stay with me." Not asking permission, not waiting for approval, just acting. "Anaphylaxis," the voice said, louder now. "She needs epinephrine, now. Does anyone have an EpiPen?" A flight attendant ran for the medical kit. The hand stayed steady on Charlotte's shoulder, grounding her as the world tilted. She cracked her eyes open, saw a man's face above her, not polished, not expensive, just ordinary, exhausted, worried. Behind him, a small boy's face, frightened. "Dad, is the lady going to die?" The man didn't answer, focused entirely on Charlotte. The EpiPen arrived. He grabbed it, didn't hesitate, jabbed it into Charlotte's thigh through her designer pants. Fire through her veins. Her throat opened slightly. Air rushed in. He counted aloud. 1, 2, 3. Breathe. Nice and slow. You're okay. You're going to be okay. He said it like a promise, like he had any control over whether she lived or died. Somehow his certainty made it feel possible. Color returned to her vision. The steel bands loosened. She was breathing. She was alive. A flight attendant touched his shoulder. "Sir, thank you. Can we get your name for our records?" The man glanced at his watch, face going pale. He looked at the small boy, looked back at Charlotte. "She needs to be monitored. The epinephrine will wear off in about 20 minutes. Have paramedics ready when we land. There's a second EpiPen in the kit if her throat starts closing again." "Sir, your name," the attendant repeated. But the man was already moving down the aisle, pulling the boy with him, back to the cheap seats, back to invisibility. Charlotte caught a glimpse, a faded jacket, worn shoes, a child's hand in his. Then, nothing. He melted into the crowd, like he'd never been there at all. Paramedics met Charlotte at the gate. Tests, observations. Doctors confirmed a severe allergy reaction. She would have died without immediate treatment. "We'd like to thank him," the doctor said. Charlotte had no name, no answer, just rough hands and a steady voice. That evening, in a private hospital room, she couldn't stop thinking about those hands. Calloused, the hands of someone who worked physically, not someone who lived in boardrooms, hands that had saved her without asking for anything. She called her head of security before midnight. "I need you to find someone." The investigation started immediately, thorough, expensive, discreet. Security footage from the airport, hundreds of faces, but the cameras never caught the man's face clearly, like he'd practiced being invisible his whole life. Days passed. Charlotte returned to work, closed a $200 million acquisition, felt nothing. She kept thinking about worth. She was worth billions on paper. What had she actually contributed? A man whose name she didn't know had given her something priceless, her life, and asked nothing in return. 2 weeks later, her investigator's voice went urgent. "Miss Brennan, her mother's funeral was 6 days ago. He hasn't worked since. He's got 48 hours before eviction proceeds. I think he's given up." Charlotte drove to the hospital where Raymond's mother had died and waited. 3 hours. Then she saw him, thin, exhausted, moving like gravity had tripled, standing at his car, hand on the door handle, not opening it, like he'd forgotten what came next. She walked toward him. "I've been looking for you." Raymond's laugh was bitter, empty. "You shouldn't have." "You saved my life." Anyone would have done the same. He genuinely believed it. "They didn't," Charlotte said. 50 people watched me dying. You were the only one who moved. Then you disappeared before I could thank you." Raymond's face went hard when she offered to help. "I don't need your charity." "This isn't charity. This isn't pity." "What is it then? Guilt money?" "You offered me my life," Charlotte said, voice shaking. "You don't even know what that's worth." Raymond broke. "I'm nobody. I have nothing. I can't even keep a roof over my son's head. My mother's last words were telling me to live again, and I can't even figure out where we'll sleep next week." They stood there, both crying, both recognizing something in the other they couldn't name yet. Charlotte made the offer that would change both their lives: full scholarship to recertify as a nurse, foundation housing, Kevin's education covered but earned, not given, a 3-year commitment, real work. "Why would you do this?" Raymond asked. "Because someone needs to, and because I think you'll change everything." She held out her hand. Raymond thought about the eviction notice, Kevin's worn shoes, his mother's voice. "Don't be afraid to live." He took her hand. "Okay." The months that followed unfolded like a dream Raymond kept expecting to wake up from. The nursing recertification program was real work: classes, clinicals, exams, skills returned. His hands remembered what they were meant to do. The foundation apartment was small but safe. Kevin had his own room for the first time in 2 years. 3 months in, Charlotte found Raymond alone in the hospital cafeteria at 2 a.m., head in his hands, surrounded by textbooks. Rough night? That night, he told her about Jennifer, how she died in childbirth while he stood there as a nurse, unable to save her. How he'd been punishing himself for 7 years for being human. "You didn't fail her," Charlotte said, taking his hand. "Medicine failed her. You were her husband. You were terrified." He asked why she was really doing all this. She told her the truth. She'd built an empire and been utterly alone the entire time. A stranger who asked for nothing reminded her that worth and value aren't the same thing. 6 months after the parking lot, Raymond reported for his first shift in scrubs. Charlotte sent a card. "You earned this. Now go save some lives. See." He kept it in his pocket through the whole shift. Then came the drawing. Kevin, 7 years old now, held up a picture of 3 stick figures holding hands. "That's me and Dad and Miss Charlotte. We're a family." Silence. Raymond tried to correct him. Charlotte spoke first. "I love it, Kevin. Can I keep it?" After Kevin ran off, Charlotte turned to Raymond. "What if I want to be? What if this stopped being about gratitude months ago and became something else?" Raymond pulled back, overwhelmed. Different worlds, different lives, the impossible math of gratitude versus feeling. Charlotte admitted she was terrified too. "I care about you, about Kevin, about the life you're building, and it scares me to death." Raymond told her about the ring around his neck, 7 years of feeling married to a memory. "I'm not ready," he said. "I'm not either. But maybe we could try. No pressure, just two people who care about each other, seeing where it goes." His mother's voice again. "Don't be afraid to live." "Okay," he whispered. 8 months after the parking lot, Raymond took the ring off the chain around his neck, held it, and made peace with it, not forgetting Jennifer, just making room. He placed it in a small box on his dresser.
1 year after the parking lot, the program Raymond helped build had grown. 50 families rescued from poverty, given medical training, given second chances. Charlotte called it the Raymond Protocol at board meetings until he blushed. On a flight to a medical conference, first class this time, an elderly passenger had a heart attack mid-flight. Raymond was out of his seat before the call finished. Charlotte was right behind him, handing him supplies before he asked. They saved the man's life like a choreographed dance. A passenger asked afterward, "How did you learn that? You two work like you've been together forever." Raymond smiled. "Someone once believed I was worth saving. She taught me to believe it too." He taught me what worth really means, that it has nothing to do with money or status, everything to do with character. At the airport terminal, Charlotte stopped walking. "Your mother told you not to be afraid to live. Are you still afraid?" Raymond looked at Kevin ahead, happy and thriving. He took Charlotte's hand, the same calloused hand that had saved her at 30,000 feet. Not anymore. Kevin ran back, breathless. "Dad, Charlotte, can we get dinner together, like a real family? Is it okay to have a new family? Mom's gone and Grandma's gone, but we can still love them and have you too, right, Dad?" Raymond knelt beside Charlotte. "Yes, buddy, we can love Mom and Grandma and still have room for new love. They'd want us to be happy. They'd want us to live." Charlotte joined the hug, 3 people forming their own small island in the middle of a busy terminal. Kevin looked at Charlotte, serious. "So are you going to be my family, Charlotte? I want family, Charlotte." "I'd like that very much," Charlotte said through tears, "if your dad's okay with it." Raymond took her hand, took Kevin's other hand. "More than okay. Let's go get dinner as a family." His mother had told him not to be afraid to live. It had taken a year, 30,000 feet, a woman he'd saved, and the courage to save himself to understand what she meant. Living wasn't just surviving. It was opening your heart even when it had been broken. It was believing you deserved good things even when the world had taught you otherwise. The man who left without a word had found his voice, found his family, found his life again. The invisible man was finally, impossibly, seen.